Everett here with Minds in Motion. Today's guest is David Lindquist, who is a marriage and family therapist. It's absolutely extraordinary, this talk, and he's going to teach us meditation techniques that we can use in our everyday lives that will be easy for us. David is a marriage and family therapist, and he spent his life surfing, teaching, becoming a therapist, sailing, skiing. David has sailed around the world. David talks about the science behind meditation, how it works, how our brain regulates it. David is going to tell us a story about his travels to Indonesia, where he first learned how to meditate. And he's going to talk about the benefits of meditation and teach us a meditation technique that we can have for our everyday life that will decrease anxiety, decrease depression, increase self-esteem, and much more. And the story that he tells is really thrilling and has so many life lessons instilled in it. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear the story. And again, at the end of the video, he will review the meditation technique. So we are solid, crystal clear on how it works and how easy it is. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Minds in Motion YouTube channel. It is free. You can pause this video right now and go do it. Click a button and then you're done. And if this video impacts you, send it to others. We are in for a big treat today. So let's go meet David Lindquist. Hi, David. It is so nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Lacey. I'm happy to be here today.
I am so grateful. We are so privileged to get to talk to you today. And I wanted to start with your story of how you grew into meditation. And then we're going to learn some tips and tricks on how to meditate, a technique.
Okay. All right. So I'll start with that. I've been a meditator twice a day for over 50 years. And I think it's been invaluable in terms of helping me stay relaxed, centered, and grounded, focused. And my brain has really grown to love meditating over the years. And I've studied a lot of different forms of meditation. So I want to talk to you today about one of the first ones that I learned. I had a book by a fellow named Joseph Goldstein, and it was called Experience of Insight. And it was about a type of meditation called Vipassana. And Hindus in caves in the Himalayas learned to meditate thousands of years ago. And it's the same technique. If you were a business person in New York right now learning insight or learning Vipassana, it would be this technique. Or if you were in a cave in the Himalayas, it'd be the same technique. So I didn't really understand all that at the time. But I had this book, Experience of Insight, and I was traveling through Southeast Asia. I'd been teaching school in Indonesia, and when I finished teaching school, I wanted to go to India. And I wanted to go to India and meditate and, see what this whole thing was about. So I was in on an island next to India called Sri Lanka. And I noticed that there was this city in Sri Lanka called Colombo. And my book was published in Colombo, and it had the address. So it didn't, like sometimes I get a fixed idea about something and I didn't think it through all the way. And I thought, oh, this must be the place. So I go to this place and I think this is where they'll teach me to meditate here. And I go in and they said, oh, no, this is the publishing house. This is where the book is published. But if you want to learn to meditate, go to this place. And so they wrote it down on a little piece of paper and gave it to me. And tropical Sri Lanka is very warm. And I got on the bus and I rode the bus for a couple hours up into the mountains that are there. And it started to cool off and it was very, very beautiful, just incredible forest and tropical, but not hot. And the bus driver, I showed the bus driver my piece of paper and he knew exactly where I was going. So he dropped me off at this place called Kandabodha Monastery in Sri Lanka, and it's a Buddhist monastery. And they had these things, it's called a reliquary mound. And they're like huge pancakes that are the size of a house, but maybe 2 feet thick, but really, really big. And they get smaller and smaller and smaller and go up to be about 2 or 3 stories high. So there's this reliquary mound, and they say that there's a tooth of the Buddha or something like that under this mound. And it was the monastery, and it's signature of the monastery that they have this thing piled up like this in front of it. And so I walked in, and there was no gate around it or wall or anything like that. It was just this series of buildings in this mound. And I saw they had a couple of rows of what looked like where there were cells where maybe the monks meditated. And there looked like a big dining hall or something with a big gong in it. And there looked something like an administrative office. And so I'm just walking around there. And I didn't understand this at the time, but the monks that are there are called Theravadan Buddhists. And so they just meditate. And if you're 15 years old in America, you're playing soccer and swimming and surfing and baseball, and you're building up your muscles. But these fellows aren't doing that. They're just meditating, and they come there sometimes at a very young age. So their bodies are kind of atrophied, and their shoulders aren't broad, and then their heads are shaved, but their head is a normal size. So it looks like the heads are bigger than should be for the body, if you can understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And then they wear an orange robe with their arm bare, and but they're not doing any physical labor. They're just meditating and studying in this form of Buddhism. And the buildings, to me, appeared to be made out of some kind of block or cinder block or something, but they were coming out of clay, and the clay like blows up on the side of the building. So it almost looked like the buildings were growing out of the ground. And it was really cool looking.
I feel like I'm there. I feel like I'm there right now with the way you describe it. It's amazing. I feel like I'm there. And like you said, it sounds like instead of building their muscles, like you said, we do in America, we're all sports oriented. Instead of building their muscles and doing bicep curls, they're doing that with their mind. It sounds
there you go. Perfect.
They're working out their mind.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. And I think that the idea is that when one meditates, it creates a vibrational field around them and makes the world a better place. So that's what their life is about. And there were about, I'd say, between 15 and 20 monks there. And they seem to range in age from being older adolescents to elderly in that range. So I'm walking around there, and this guy comes up and he walks up and he looks at me kind of curiously, one of the monks, and he spoke English, and he said, did you come here to meditate? And I thought, yeah, okay, yeah. And he said, well, do you want to meditate right now? And so I'm thinking, yeah, okay. And I think he's going to like take me to with the other monks, and I'll meditate with the monks. This can be really cool. So he takes me down one of these little kind of walkways on the outside where these little rooms are that I'm assuming are the cells where the monks live or meditate or something. So he goes, you can meditate in here. So he takes me in one of the rooms, and he opens the door. And inside the room, there's a little table with 2 bowls on it and a little thing for incense. Then there's a mat on the floor that would be like a sleeping mat or something. And then there's a black cushion that I'm assuming is what you sit on when you meditate. So he goes, you can meditate in here. And then he goes and he leans against the window. And he goes, you can start right now, and you can start meditating right now, but that large bowl, put that large bowl, they'll ring a gong about 4 o'clock in the morning and put that large bowl out for tea. They'll put tea in it. And I just go, he thinks I'm staying all night. And I did have my backpack with me and my travel stuff because I was traveling around, and I thought, so I'm just kind of confused about what he thinks I'm gonna be here all night, and I'm not even really sure I know how to meditate right yet. So
oh no,
this is going through my mind, right? And he goes, and don't talk to anybody because we observe silence here. So don't speak to anybody. Civilly, the head monk will call you later on today and teach you the meditation technique, but don't speak to anybody because we're silent.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, okay. And then he goes, then you put the other bowl out at dawn, and they'll put some rice gruel in it. We only eat one meal a day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but since you're a foreigner, we'll give you a little snack in the morning and some fruit or something in the afternoon. And I think he thinks I'm staying all night and all day. Then he says, and don't waste any time because you can only stay here 21 days. And then he closes the door and window and goes away.
No way.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm thinking this is really something.
Okay,
And
what an experience.
so the guy civilly calls me later on and he teaches me the technique, and I did stay the 21 days and I was silent for 21 days. And the local people that live there, I don't think they understand meditation or anything like that, but they really support the monastery. And I will say for those 21 days, it was that one meal a day was maybe the best food I've ever eaten in my life. It was incredible. It was vegetarian, and about 10 people would come every day with a bowl, and each bowl would have some different type of vegetarian dish in it, and they would scoop it out into your bowl, and then you would sit there and eat, but nobody talked.
Mindfulness eating, mindful eating.
Yeah, that was what it was. Or you do sitting meditation for an hour, and then you do a walking meditation for a half an hour, and then sitting meditation for an hour. And I had no idea I'd be able to do this all day long, much less for 21 days. But the time went really fast. It was really quite incredible. At the end of the 21 days, the guy came and knocked on my door and said, "Okay, your time's up." And I packed up, and he walked me to the bus, and I waved goodbye, and that was it.
Just like that. Wow.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you when the moment when he said, don't waste any time because you only have 21 days, when you think you think staying all day is enough? What went through your mind? Were you
It was really
oh, gosh.
amazing, because had I heard this some other time or place, I might have been very, very concerned. Like, I don't think I could do that. That's really weird. But there was something about it, about the place and about the guy and about just the whole thing, that I thought, I should really do this. I should really try and do this.
Yes,
and I was in the middle of travels. I had no objective to be anywhere or anything. So I just did it.
What a special experience. And
Yeah.
also, I feel like there's a life lesson in that experience, in the fact that you were just so free and happy-go-lucky with it and just curious. And that led you to this technique that has helped you excel in your life, just because you were curious and you just wanted to learn. And hey, why not? Let's just stay here for 21 days. Let's just try it. I admire that.
So over the years, I've taught this technique, this Vipassana technique, to many, many people. And I understand it on a level now that I didn't understand it then. I was just following directions, but I now understand more of what it's about. So I thought today I would teach that technique and show you what I learned.
Yes, please, let's learn.
So the idea is that if you have a machine called an electroencephalograph hooked up to your brain, it measures brainwave frequency. We think in electrical impulses.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're talking right now, the frequency is in a frequency called beta. And when you're really relaxed and really chilling out and just feeling really calm, sometimes in a creative state, the brainwave frequency is in alpha. It's called alpha. And then when you get really, really relaxed, when you're sleeping, it goes into a frequency called theta and delta. When you meditate, the brainwave frequency, when you transcend, when you meditate, goes twice as deep. It can go twice as deep in theta and delta as it does during deep sleep. So you can actually get more rest meditating than you can sleeping. It doesn't make up for sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I explain this because if you watch somebody sleeping, they're absorbing a lot of oxygen because they're digesting, they're dreaming, their body's rebuilding, it's restoring. When you meditate, I understand that digestion slows down or stops. And you're actually putting your awareness down below the level of thinking, which I'll explain a little bit more in a minute of how that works and why that works. But Hindus in caves, thousands of years ago, figured out that the brain has a process that's natural to it of wanting to be aware. Like you wake up in the morning and you're aware.
Mm-hmm.
Then the brain comments on what you're aware about. Oh, it's morning. That comment creates stress. Even if it's, oh my gosh, I'm glad it's morning. I've got to get up. I'm going surfing today, or I'm going skiing, or I'm going to school, or whatever. Or, oh no, I got to go to work. Whether it's a happy thought or a sad thought, it's in some level raises the metabolism. So we say it causes stress. The heartbeat picks up, breathing picks up. Now, if one is worrying, that takes a lot of energy. If one is creating something or inventing, it takes a lot of energy. And this is one of the things that I found out years later. There's an educator called Benjamin Bloom, and he professed something called Bloom's Taxonomy, which is a method of when you're teaching children in school, you want to sometimes move to the high levels of stress of Bloom's taxonomy, where you're teaching synthesis, you're teaching creativity, you're teaching compare and contrast. Those things are high level thinking that take a lot of energy and are important to do to develop the brain.
Yes.
The simplest thing that the brain can do in Bloom's taxonomy is to name something. Just naming something is the easiest thing for the brain to do. Like I look at that and say, that's a desk. Now, that's low on the taxonomy. Naming something is very low. Creating a desk or building a desk or making a new type of desk is very high on the taxonomy. So in terms of somebody's learning, we want to get them to the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy so that the brain is stressed more and learns more and creates, or compares and contrasts, something of that level. So what the Hindus in caves figured out, and the Buddhists figured out, was that the brain wants to be aware, and the easiest thing for the brain to do is to name something. So they call this naming something a central focus. A central point of focus. It gives the brain something to focus on that's easy. And what they figured out is the easiest thing for the brain to do, and the most fun for the brain, and the simplest for the brain, is to be focused on some function inside the body. And the easiest function to be aware of, like if we could swallow or eat food, that would be a nice function, but you can't do that for a long period of time. The easiest thing to focus on is the breathing. And in this type of Vipassana meditation, in this monastery, what we learned was to focus on the breathing on the tummy. So if you put your attention on your tummy for a minute, and just put your brain there and think about your tummy, that's what you're being aware of. And notice that when you breathe in, your tummy rises a little bit, and when you breathe out, it falls a little bit. It rises on the inhale and falls on the exhale. So,
belly breathing.
Belly breathing. So what they decided was, or what they understood was, the brain wants to be aware. The easiest thing for the brain to be aware of is its own breathing. Then the easiest, simplest thing for the brain to do is to name what it's seeing. Rising, falling, rising, falling. So the meditation technique is in your mind, you're saying the word rising when you breathe in.
Right.
And when you exhale, you're saying the word falling.
Falling.
Now, here's what happens. Normally in life, we do something that activates the right hemisphere, like drawing, dancing, singing, or the left hemisphere, doing mathematics, trying to figure something out, writing a story. Well, when you meditate and you're just naming rising and falling, the brain begins to have a very deep rest, and it needs very little oxygen to do that. Because like I said, if you're worrying, it takes a lot of oxygen. If you're creating something, it takes a lot of oxygen. And I explain this to people because when you start to meditate, your breathing is going like this, rising, falling, rising, falling. But after a few minutes, it's not going like this anymore. It's just going like this. It's barely moving because the brain needs less oxygen to meditate than anything else. It needs a lot of oxygen to sleep. It needs a lot of oxygen to worry. It needs very, very little oxygen if you're just naming something over and over again. And the brain likes that process. Now, here's what happens. Once the brain begins to relax, it starts to release stress. And it releases stress in the form of thoughts. They're automatic thoughts. We have in our life between 40 and 60,000 automatic thoughts a day.
Wow, I believe.
If I had 60,000 automatic thoughts yesterday, I couldn't tell you what 10 of them were. Maybe I'm hungry, I've got to exercise today, is it time to meditate yet? Oh, I've got to meet a client at 4 o'clock. Those are automatic thoughts that you can't control.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is that when one starts to meditate and the brain begins to release an automatic thought, if you follow the thought and add to the thought, that's thinking. Like I might have a thought when I'm meditating, oh, I forgot to write that check. Oh, I got to write that check. I better do that. Then the metabolism picks up to think that thought. Or if I think, I'm really hungry. When I get done with this, I'm going to go to In-N-Out Burger. I think I'll go to the In-N-Out Burger in Aliso Viejo. The brain picks up to think that thought and have energy. If you let the thought go, just let it go and go back to rising and falling, the brain dips for a fraction of a second in theta and delta. The person's brain gets a fraction of a second of very deep rest until the next thought comes. If you follow the thought and start thinking the thought, the metabolism picks up, and that's thinking. If you let the thought go and go back to rising and falling, that's meditating.
There we go. And it's important to not judge yourself or get mad if you lose the meditation, if you lose the focus on the breath.
Because you see, you can't help but do that because your brain is going to produce automatic thoughts. And you can test that by just sitting down and just sit there, and all of a sudden your brain starts to think a thought. It might be a thought you want, or it might be a thought you don't want. And that has a lot to do with anxiety. Anxiety is having thoughts that we don't want. But when you meditate, all you're doing is waiting for a thought and letting it go and go back to rising and falling, letting it go and go back to rising and falling. Now, there's another aspect to this that I didn't understand at the time, that in some forms of meditation, there's something called a mantra. A mantra is a word that's the central point of focus instead of a function in the body. And the most famous word for a mantra is Om. But most mantras are written in Sanskrit, and they have the word ing in them. So rising, falling contributes to the concept of a mantra.
Interesting.
And they believe, and I think this is true, that the mantra creates a vibrational frequency in the brain that's a comforting frequency. Ing is a much better frequency than that, or although.
Very true, yes.
So the vibrational frequency of ing contributes to the depth of the meditation by making the vibrational frequency in the mind. So when I think a thought, as soon as I recognize I'm thinking the thought, even if I've been thinking it for 5 minutes, I let it go and go back to rising and falling. Now, one of the interesting things is, if I'm worrying about something during the day and I have concern about something, I will start thinking about it when I'm meditating. And maybe I'm thinking about, I've got to go get my car, I'm going to go drive to Mammoth and go skiing, and I've got to get my tire changed before I go. So when I'm starting to meditate, I'll think, oh, I got to change the tire. Whoop, back to rising and falling. I got to change the tire, back to rising and falling. Change the tire, pay the bill, do my homework, wash the dog. Oh, I forgot to get the laundry, go to the market. Whatever those automatic thoughts are, they'll come up one right after the other because they're all releases of stress.
Which is great.
Even a happy
That's
thought.
us, even happy thoughts. Okay. It's wonderful because that's us releasing stress and toxins out of our body. And I think I love what you're saying, because I think there's a stigma around meditation where you have to focus on one thing. And if you have other thoughts, that's just not allowed and not okay. But that's how we release stress. And when we have those thoughts, that's okay, because that's part of the meditation process, as long as you effortlessly.
I'm so glad you said that, because the most common thing that I get from people that say they tried meditation, I just can't do it because all I get is thoughts. Well, the more thoughts you get, the better, because each thought that you let go, your brain will dip into theta and delta. And then what happens is, here's the breathing, and the breathing slows down. Then pretty soon, the brainwave frequency, or the brain, goes below the level of thinking. I think those thoughts are still coming up, but your awareness is below that level. And you're at a very, very, very deep state of rest. And you don't recognize you're there till you, whoa, where was I? And I explain this to people in the beginning, because if you've never transcended, it can be a little bit like, whoa, that was incredible. That was so relaxing. But what happened? When you have that thought, that's a thought again. Let it go and go back to rising and falling. I just can't do this. All I'm getting is thoughts. Let it go and go back to rising and falling. Yeah, this is fabulous. This is horrible. Whatever it is, let it go and go back to rising and falling.
Over time, would you say it gets better, and then it kind of translates to our lives? We feel less anxiety.
Well, the idea of meditating is that you bring that deep rest back into your life. You bring that relaxation back into your life. That's why I don't schedule, sometimes I don't schedule a lunch. I just eat a sandwich between patients, but I always schedule an afternoon meditation. And I schedule a half an hour for that, so that I always, somewhere between 2:30 and 4 o'clock, I have a half hour to meditate, and it just gives my brain a chance to reboot. And I feel much better every single morning if I exercise, and every afternoon if I meditate. And the best time to meditate is when you first wake up in the morning, right when you wake up. The second best time is between like 1:30 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And why would you say that? Just for people who don't know.
Because by the afternoon, I'm starting to feel stress in my body. I've been working all day. I'm starting to feel a little bit. And when I meditate, it like totally relaxes my brain for the rest of the day and the evening.
Yeah.
And in the morning, it's the best time because it smooths out sleep.
Oh, I see.
And it gives you the deep rest that you need to start the day.
So this is absolutely wonderful to know. I have never regretted meditating, and it's hard to get people there, to get people to meditate, because they think, oh, I don't want to sit and just do nothing, or it's hard for me to do that, but then afterwards you notice the subtle, really quietness from within, and you feel calmer, and then, like you said, it translates to life, and little things don't bug you as much anymore. It's pretty spooky.
It just gives your brain a chance to reboot, to unhook and reboot, and have very deep rest in the middle of the day. And it's much more efficient than napping. Now, I will say something happens when you meditate. If you have to take a nap in the day, meditate first, because the deepest, most profound nap you'll ever have is right after you meditate, because all the stress is out of your body and your brain just sinks into a very, very deep rest, but not deeply. And sometimes when people nap in the afternoon, they just get too groggy and too tired. If you meditate first, the stress is gone, and then your brain and your body get a deep rest of a nap. And I used to nap after I meditated. I probably haven't napped for years and years and years now, after doing that. And I will say that once one gets used to this, the brain wants it.
Yes,
My brain really wants, like, I want to have lunch. I really want lunch. I don't eat breakfast, but I really want lunch, and I really want to meditate in the afternoon, and it just feels good. And when I do that, I'm just much more productive. So if I've exercised in the morning and meditated, and then meditate in the afternoon, and if I'm too busy to meditate, I am too busy.
Okay.
So what I'm teaching myself to do is to pay attention and relax. And then that ability to pay attention and relax transforms into the activities that I'm participating in throughout the day. Now, there's another part of this that's interesting to me, and I don't know why this is, but part of the brain needs to be aware of time when you meditate. And it doesn't work laying down. The brain goes into the spine. And so when you meditate, gravity, somehow the spine has to be straight with gravity. It doesn't work laying down. So one sits generally with the hands in the lap. And in the morning, I just sit up in my bed and put my legs out. I used to cross them back in the day, but I don't do that anymore. I just put them out straight, sit there, and I meditate. The optimum time is 20 minutes to a half an hour. I meditate for half an hour. I have colleagues that will meditate for 2 hours at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 to 6. But a half hour is really, I think, a good time. But what I'm saying is that part of the brain needs to be aware of time. So when I wake up in the morning, I'll say, okay, it's 5 minutes to 5. I'm going to meditate until 5:25. And then I meditate. And when I think 5:25 is there, I'll open one eye and just look at the clock. If you open both eyes, your metabolism picks up too much. And remember, you're slowing down the metabolism. So I just open one eye, glance at the clock, and I've got 10 more minutes, close the eye. Very seldom, if I meditate for 40 minutes instead of 30 minutes, that happens once in a while. But the brain gives the meditation gives the brain the rest that it needs. And if you need more rest, it'll go a little bit over, but it usually doesn't. And sometimes I'll open one eye and I've only been meditating 20 minutes. Then I'll open my eye again. It was 23 minutes, 27 minutes, 29 minutes. But eventually I get there.
Yeah. And then simply just go back to the breath or the mantra or whatever it is that you're okay. And I noticed that too with my own. I do 20 minutes twice a day. And I notice if I had an alarm go off, it takes you out of it. Talk about boosting that metabolism. That's why I think what you said, open one eye, check the time. Okay, you're not there yet, close it. Or okay, you're over the time.
Also, the longer I've meditated, the better I got at seeing the time, at noticing the time. And I will say, I don't know how many times that would be meditating for over 50 years, twice a day. And I used to think, gosh, each one of these is different. Each meditation they're never the same. And
it's a powerful experience that instills a lot of benefits in us. It's like the new meditation is the new coffee. It's like, I don't need coffee. We don't need any of those sugar candies, whatever we do to get energy. You feel energized after, you feel more aware, you feel a peace from within.
And I'll say I still enjoy a cup of coffee, believe me, but I have it after I meditate in the morning. I meditate first and then have my coffee. I wake up, put the coffee pot on, go to the bathroom, and then I sit back down and meditate for a half an hour.
Nice.
And like I said, if I'm too busy to meditate, I'm too busy.
There's
And
a lot of power in that.
The more thoughts I have, the better, because each thought is a release of stress. And we treat sounds and physical sensations the same way. Like sometimes when I'm meditating, I'll notice, gosh, this feels incredible. This is just incredible. That's thinking. So I let go of that and go back to rising and falling. Or if I hear a sound, why are those people saying that? Or those cars are loud. Just let that go and back to rising and falling.
Okay.
And I meditate on airplanes and buses and in the car, my wife's driving, listening to the radio, and I just meditate and the radio goes away.
It's really interesting how that goes away, because that's another stigma. Oh, I need a quiet place. I can't be in a quiet place. It's too hard for me, or these things are distracting me. That's okay. It's okay. Go back to the breath.
That's exactly it. Because every time I'm aware of something, that's a little bit of a release of stress. And when I let go of it and go back to rising and falling, my brain dips into theta and delta, and I get a little bit of that deep rest.
There we go. Wow. And isn't so, I'm almost baffled at the fact that something so simple and effortless can be so beneficial for people.
Now, I remember I've several times meditated all night. And when 30 years ago, when I had to take my test to become a family therapist, I was really nervous about taking this test. And I'd studied for it. You know, I've been preparing for it for several years. And I'm not a very good test taker, especially a written test. And I was really, really nervous about this written part of the test. And someone had told me, when you're going to take a test, go find the testing site first. And it was really about 45 minutes or an hour away from my home. So I decided what I was going to do. The test was 9 o'clock in the morning. So I decided what I'd do is I'd go out there, I'd find the place, and then I'd get a hotel, spend the night in a hotel, and then get up in the morning and be ready to take the test. So I parked my car, walked right to the door, looked at the sign, looked at the number on the door. Okay, I know exactly where I'm going. Then I drove, and there was a hotel near there. There was only one hotel, but there was a hotel near there. And I checked into the hotel and went to dinner, came back, and the hotel was near a train track. And there were trains that would stop, and then the cars would go against the engine. And it was all night long, these cars were going, and there was air conditioning in the room. But the air conditioner was really loud and sounded kind of like a garbage disposal.
Oh gosh.
And I discovered this like at 11 o'clock at night, and I couldn't fall asleep.
I don't think anyone would be able to.
And about 1:30, I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I can't fall asleep. What am I going to do? So I sat up and I meditated, and I meditated the whole night, just like I did in the monastery.
What?
And I didn't sleep 1 second, but in the morning, when I realized it was like 7 o'clock or 7:30, and I stopped meditating, and I got in the shower and I started to take a shower, and I was wondering, gosh, I didn't sleep all night. And then I started singing. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm singing. I feel really happy. I feel really rested.
This is awesome.
And I did really well on the test, and I passed the test. But the point here is that under all that stress, I meditated the whole night, and the next day I felt really great. Now, meditation, there are some things that happen in sleep that don't happen when you meditate. So meditation doesn't take over for sleep.
Yeah.
But on occasion, I've meditated all night and done really, really well the next day. So just another piece of gee whiz information about it.
Absolutely. Talk about wisdom. Yes, it seems like it has really benefited you and only helped you. It's never done any harm.
No,
And
no.
you're so advanced at it. And to be so young, just walking through Indonesia, oh, I'm going to go here. Oh, look, this is on a book. I'm going to try to find this address. Let's see what happens. That's so
Yeah.
admirable. And I think curiosity, there's so much power in that. And the fact that you did that and you just let it happen and you've progressed with your meditation experiences and you've learned other techniques along the path of your life. And now you're here telling us this wonderful technique that we can use, belly breathing, focusing on your breath. And everyone's different. Would you say what works for someone might work for someone else better or worse, or the types of meditation that they do?
Well, there are many different ways to meditate, many different types. Personally, I think transcendental meditation is the most powerful. But this Vipassana is a very popular form, and it's a good way to start, and it's what I teach. And I just want to review the process that you sit with your back straight, eyes closed. In your mind, you're watching your tummy. And when you breathe in your mind, you say the word rising. When you breathe out, you say the word falling. Rising. Falling. And then every time you have a thought, a feeling, or a sound that your awareness gets distracted by, you let that go and go back to falling and rising. And then you open one eye when you think your time's up. And then when your time is up, it's best if you sit for a minute or two and just let normal thinking take over, because your metabolism does really slow down. So you're letting your metabolism pick up. And then you go about your day and you bring some of that deep rest with you into your day. And so there you go.
This was wonderful, David. I am so grateful. And I know a lot of other people who will be as well.
Well, I hope so. I hope it's helpful. And it was great talking to you today. And
Thank you.
We'll do this another day if you would like, and we can do anxiety or panic, or I've got 20 subjects we could talk about if you want to do another one at another time.
Yes. You have all of the insight and so much wisdom. I'm seriously so grateful. This was amazing. And I love
good. I'm
that
glad
we
it
got
was
to
helpful.
learn it. Yes, and we get to take away a little souvenir today, a technique that we can use for our lives. And
there's somebody that wants to say hello here. This is Lucida. Now, this is funny. All of my dogs, my 3 skipper keys that I've had over the last like 30 years, have all done the same thing when I meditate. They sit at my feet and wait till I'm done.
Wow.
And then when I'm finished and open my eyes, they charge into my lap.
Oh, how cute.
It's so funny.
They know, they're so in tune. Animals
they just
are so in tune.
He's meditating, just leave him alone. But when he's done, I'm going to get some good pets and scratches.
Oh, I love that. Yes, exactly.
Right,
that's where their
Lucida?
mind goes. Hi, Lucida, are you a little meditator too?
Yes, I am. Okay, Lace, I'm going to sign off.
This was great. Right. Thank you so much.
All right. And I really enjoyed your additions and contributions to the conversation. So I look forward to doing it again.